Okay, I want to talk a little bit about why the Kendrick Johnson family settled on Brian and Brandon Bell. It's not really clear to me why they chose these two brothers, because the two brothers were alibied as being nowhere near the scene where KJ is last seen alive, which is in the old gym, and he is last seen alive at approximately 1:30 in the afternoon. But very quickly, and I guess it was probably because of rumors from the other high school students that were coming to the parents and coming to KJ's two older siblings. That would be Kenyetta Johnson, she goes by Choppa, and that would be Kenneth Johnson Jr., he goes by Nunu. So they were coming to them and making all kinds of crazy allegations, I guess. And the fact that Brian Bell had an FBI father, a father who worked for the FBI, for some reason, this was the perfect storm of perfect white uh, uh, potential perpetrators that the Kendrick Johnson family thought made a whole lot of sense as far as them as far as these two boys wanting to kill their son. There was a fight on a school bus about a year and a half prior to KJ's death, and the parents made a big deal about that. But when you look at the case file and when you interview people, and in fact, I even saw some footage on the web from Kenyetta Chapa, the older sister. She's even talking about how it didn't bother KJ, that particular fight, and that KJ just brushed it off. And there's testimony from other teachers and students that KJ and Brian actually worked on a school project together. They were still friends. I'm told that the day that KJ was found dead, that Brian was very deeply upset because they were friends from football. And in fact, in middle school, Rick Bell, the father, he coached all of the middle school kids, and KJ was one of them. And the Bell family also says that KJ came to their house and hung out with all the other football kids, and they played video games with the brothers and just, usual teenage boy things. And there was one time when Karen Bell, the mother of Brian and Brandon, where she took KJ home. And when she says home, it was a home in Clyattville, and that might have been his grandmother's home. I don't know for sure, but that's what she says, where she took him. And Mrs. Johnson says that never happened, that never happened. KJ hated Brian. Kenneth Johnson says that KJ told him that he whooped KJ on the bus, and I don't know if KJ told him that or not, but in the case file and according to coaches and students, no blows were ever struck. The other kids grabbed the two boys, and it was no more than a scuffle, and that was the end of it. They were not allowed to dress out, they were not allowed to play, and they both had to find their own way home. And I'll come back to them finding their own way home and the controversy that arose because of that. So the family of KJ decided to focus on the Bells, and it's still not clear to me why, but I guess it's because of this fight on the school bus that was about a year and a half before KJ died. I do know that Mrs. Johnson came to the school the next day after the fight, and the football coaches had tried to handle the fight by just suspending the boys, not letting them dress out, making them find their own way home. And the football coaches did not make a report to the school administration about the fight. So Mrs. Johnson came into the school and immediately said it was racial discrimination, that her boy had to ride home in a police cruiser, and Brian got to ride home with his mom or his parents who were at the game. The Johnson family was not at the game. KJ rode home with a friend of the family who happened to be the school resource officer. She's a black woman. I talked to her. We talked about him riding in the car. He was in the front seat, and they listened to music and they chatted, and it wasn't like he was being treated as a criminal. If his parents hadn't been there and if he hadn't ridden with the school resource officer, he was going to have to catch a Greyhound bus or a Trailways bus, because that's the rules when you're on the football team. If you get in a fight on the bus, you can't ride the football bus home. So that's the rules. So it was really a blessing to KJ that the school resource officer said, I know the family, I know KJ, and he can come home with me. And he was not in the back seat, and he was not treated as a prisoner. But Mrs. Johnson went into the school and raised a ruckus and claimed racial discrimination. And it was very clear that she was angry at Brian Bell and considered him the instigator, and et cetera, et cetera. So this was ugly. The coaches didn't want to tell the school administration about it. They tried to handle it themselves. When the school administration found out about it, they had to suspend both boys. So Mrs. Johnson got both boys in trouble. Okay, back to the video footage. Well, the Johnsons and their attorney, Shaveen King, and with the help of CNN reporter Victor Blackwell and Victor Blackwell's paid video expert Grant Fredericks, they put a lot of articles out on the web about how you couldn't trust the school surveillance video, that it had been tampered with and there was missing footage and the timestamps weren't all connected. I tried to address that in a previous video, so I don't want to go back over it. But after the Lowndes County Sheriff's Office closed their case, so Kendrick died in January of 2013, the Sheriff's Office closed their case at the end of May 2013, and then all of the files were released to the public, except the students' names and faces were hidden because of a law called FERPA, and I've talked about that, and it took a judge's order to release all of that. But anyway, the family was not happy with the findings of accident, and they kept advocating for the DOJ, the Department of Justice, to come in and investigate. And so since I was still part of, I was still part of the NAACP at that time, so I advocated for the DOJ to come in, and the state NAACP put together a rally and asked for me and for other people in the NAACP, as well as other people in different organizations, to come and speak and to ask the DOJ to come in. And you can find us all on the web somewhere with this rally. And the reason we were asking for this, I believed at that time that he had died of an accident, but because of things that were done in the case, mistakes that were made, but to me, they're not heinous mistakes that people should think there was a cover-up. They were mistakes that probably happen in other cases, but they're just not blown out of proportion. But the way that KJ died was just so sensational and bizarre that people were crying out for a better explanation. They just couldn't understand how this could happen. And I think that's why these mistakes got amplified more than what they deserved. But be that as it may, we all asked for the DOJ to come in, and I believe they came in October of 2013. Now, the Civil Rights Division said, we do not find anything that suggests his civil rights were violated, meaning we don't think he was treated any differently than a white student was treated. And so they made that statement, and then the Department of Justice said, we will review the case. And so that was October of 2013. By that point, all of the case file information had been released to the public at the end of May, beginning of June of 2013. And then later, a judge made a ruling that would release all the redacted videos so that you could see the people's faces, the students' faces. And to the best of my knowledge, it also revealed the names of students that were in the case file, which up until that point, because they were minors, they were hidden. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But in any event, when a DOJ comes in, the FBI is the investigative body. And so they went around and interviewed all kinds of kids, teachers, coaches, administrators, the deputies, the sheriff, and of course the KJ family. I was interviewed. I talked because, I told them what I had heard. And so that's just how the DOJ does things. And then the video was taken, and there was a big deal about that. The DOJ came in, they took the hard drives from the school, they took the computers at the sheriff's office, they took cell phones from the Bells, they took all of this stuff, and they analyzed the video from the school, and what they found, lo and behold, what we had been saying all along, Brian Bell was was not near Kendrick Johnson when KJ is last seen alive. Brian Bell is on the other side of the school. I'm told he was approximately a mile away. Now, this was told to the Johnsons, and this was told to Shaveen King over and over, because everyone here already knew that, because I got to talk to the IT tech out at the school. I got to talk to the superintendent. I got to talk to the sheriff, the sheriff's attorney, deputies, and they all said the same thing. Not only was Brian Bell on the other side of the school a mile away, but his brother Brandon Bell was on a bus over 60 miles away. Now, the KJ family and their attorney kept saying over and over in public that everybody was lying about this. Well, that was one reason that we asked the DOJ to come in, not only to give comfort to the family, but also to address these allegations against our entire community that the family and their attorney, Shaveen King and Ben Crump, remember him? He was associated with the family at the very beginning. So there were all these press conferences that were held, and there was never any facts put up there. There were simply wild accusations and speculations and insinuations that authorities were lying about what happened at Lowndes High School and about what happened in their investigation. And a big part of it was they kept saying, Rick Bell, the FBI agent, he had to be in on it. And at one point, the Johnson's attorney even accused Rick Bell, the school superintendent, and the sheriff of taking KJ's body to the school at night, putting it down in the mat, hiding it there, and then ordering students to go over there and pretend to find it the next morning. Now, folks, if y'all believe that, then that is just off the chain insanity. There were other people accusing Rick Bell of telling all the kids what to go up to the grand jury and tell the grand jury. There were 2 grand juries that were seated in Macon. That's where the U.S. Attorney Michael Moore had his offices. And as Sheriff Prine found out, Michael Moore was talking to Victor Blackwell and people at Ebony, which you should not do if you are a DOJ attorney. I talked to Michael Moore, but it was a one-sided flow of information. I was telling him what I had heard, and he was not telling me what they were doing. But what would be the reason that you are having a flow of information between television studios and magazines that were writing stories about the Kendrick Johnson case? I don't know. I think it's highly suspicious, and I don't think it should have happened. So anyway, eventually the DOJ closed their review, and a large part of it was because the FBI said these people are simply nowhere near Kendrick and could not have been involved. And Rick Bell also has an alibi, and he was nowhere on scene. And our former police chief, Brian Childress, was he oversaw the crime lab, and he sent some of his crime scene investigators to the death scene at the old gym because the deputies had asked for some assistance in processing the scene. So he was very involved in all of the information that came out of it as well. And he knew, because he talks to all the FBI agents, all the GBI agents, and all the Lowndes County Sheriff's Department people, he knew that Rick Bell was nowhere near this particular situation at Lowndes High School. Okay, well, when the FBI said, here it is, we're done, there's nothing else to be said about these people that you're targeting, the DOJ, Michael Moore, and another DOJ attorney, Deb Sines, they went and they got some Washington, D.C. police officers, 2 in particular named Nelson Roan and Mitch Creedle. And basically these folks were deputized in as federal marshals, and they organized raids on 6 homes down here in Valdosta. It was 6 homes total. Some were here in Valdosta, some were in where the Bells lived in Florida, and some were in Ohio where Brian Bell was going to school. And so these federal marshals, which were really Washington, D.C. cops, they were all suited up in body armor. They were carrying what looked like assault rifles to me. And at the Bell's house, they had a giant SWAT armored vehicle and a guy in a gun turret sticking his upper body out of the top of the vehicle. And they raided the homes, took the cell phones, took the computers. They brought it all back and they found nothing. And what they were looking for was evidence of witness tampering and obstruction. They were looking for communications between all of these people and with other students who the DOJ was questioning. They questioned over 100 people, I believe, in 2 separate grand juries. So they were looking for evidence, cell phone evidence, computer evidence, internet evidence, that there was some kind of conspiracy regarding communication, regarding telling people what to say. And obviously they found nothing because they closed their case. They said that the Bells were not involved. Nobody was indicted, nobody was charged, and that should have been the end of it. But as we know, that has not been the end of it. So that's kind of the whole situation in a nutshell regarding why the Kendrick Johnson family targeted Brian Bell. And for whatever reason, Mrs. Johnson in particular simply will not let it go, and she continues to this day to make claims that Brian Bell was involved. And I will be talking about more of that. Okay, bye.